All right, hello, folks, and welcome to Bards and Books. I'm Usman, and today something a little different. We are talking about LitRPG. Now, I just recently got into LitRPG thanks to this fellow right here. This is my good buddy Nick. Nick, how you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Good. Well, this is the first ever episode of Leveling Up where we're going to talk LitRPG, all LitRPG, and so today we're talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl. And
Yes.
the overarching series is also called Dungeon Crawler Carl. But man, I'm so glad we started this one. Like this, I'm enjoying it a lot. How about you?
I love it. I mean, I've been told to read it a lot, but I've never gotten into it. Never tried it yet. So I really enjoyed this first book.
Yeah, and you've delved into a lot more lit RPG than I have. So
Yeah.
so where does this rank for you? Like how good is it in terms of other stuff?
I mean, it's up there. I think it's probably uh, in my top 3 or 4 best lit RPGs, just from the
Wow.
first book. I mean, let's see how the rest of it goes, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's also a very easy read, really nice read to start off on too.
absolutely. And we are doing this on audiobook. And man, let me tell you, I could not for the life of me do audiobooks for the longest time, but I think this genre specifically is ideal for audiobooks. I'm really, really enjoying audiobooks. And
Hmm.
I got my Audible account, and now, yeah. So something I'm definitely going to continue in the future. And Jeff Hayes is a fantastic narrator.
Definitely one of the best narrators in the business for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've only listened to two series. The other one being what is it? Everybody Loves Large Chests, which you also
Yeah.
introduced me to. He narrates both, and man, he's just so good. I enjoy them both so much.
A lot of people
Um,
struggle with voices, doing different
yeah,
ones, but he goes all out.
yeah. No, he
Hmm.
does well, and he's part of this. What is it? The Sound Booth
Sound booth theater. There's a
Theater.
bunch of different groups of their podium audio and all these different other royal audio. They have their own groups that do like audible books, and they do teams, and a lot of the same voice actors will work on the same products from the same companies. So,
Mm.
and some of them are higher budget studios, and some of them just pump out lots and lots. But usually they kind of stick to one genre, and uh, sometimes you don't have to go to Audible. You can go to their own uh, website or app, and send them more money directly instead of sending it directly to Amazon. But
Mhm.
Audible is definitely easier. It's
Yeah.
definitely easier.
Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start non-spoiler. So this will all be non-spoiler, and then once we get into the spoiler stuff, I will put up a big sign. No, but no, but I'll definitely mention it once we're getting into spoilers. So for the people that haven't read or listened to this yet, let's start with our general thoughts. What we liked, what we disliked, that kind of thing. Why don't you start?
All right. Well, the one thing I mean, I guess I'll start with likes because the number one thing I liked about it is how much of an easy read this is. They don't go too deep into stats or you know bog you down with figures or like uh, side dumps and side characters that don't really matter. They don't take you off to some other side story. Oh, maybe this will be important later, but it's like they don't really bog you down. They keep you with the main guy, and it's a solid straight shot story. They don't They don't show you any grinding too hard. They don't talk about him grinding individual times and like, oh, this percentage and this percentage, and you know they don't bog you down too much, which I really enjoyed. You can kind of just you don't have to think too hard. They don't like make you do math like at this times this and this is how much he's doing. They don't care about damage. They don't tell you about hit points.
Yeah.
Not really. It's just kind of
Mhm.
like more action and more story
Yeah,
and more
I
emotion
definitely
kind of
agree with
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
definitely a like for me too. Yeah.
for sure. I mean, and dislikes, I mean, I think the one thing is that it was a little bit of a slow start. I was kind of
Mm.
like right when we started off, it's kind of like where are they going with this, you know, and that might turn a lot of people away. And it wasn't
Mhm.
a very long slow start. Like at the very beginning, you're like, okay, all right, what's going on here? This is kind of weird. And then, you know, I think after like the first 3 or 4 chapters, and you're like, okay, now things are starting to build up for this guy. I'm starting to care about this character a little bit. It started off a little bit dry for me.
Mm.
That's just, I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's like if you're going into lit RPG, you kind of usually have like some sort of like, you know, uh, more fantastical world that you kind of like show off a little bit, and it's felt like they didn't really give you much environment or anything like that where it starts.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I think it builds. I think the characters kind of really build it more.
That's yeah. That's fair. And there is a surprising amount of good character work in this. A lot of
Hmm.
characters that I'm really invested in. What I enjoy, which I mean, I haven't dived into a lot of lit RPG yet, but what I enjoyed about this one was that it's like a take on our world. It's like if our world was to experience this, so it put into a progression thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, I
I
mean,
mean,
compared to other stuff,
I guess it's realistic and like how tough it would be for a lot of people. Like
yeah,
this guy, I guess because he was kind of, I guess I don't want to spitball too much, but
hmm,
I guess the main character is a little bit tougher than the rest of people that might be around. They didn't have as much of a hard time digging into it, but a lot of
hmm.
people, as it shows, would have a real tough time in that situation. You know,
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, and I guess he does kind of have a leg up. I mean, he's what, a veteran, right? A
yeah,
military veteran.
he was he was in the Navy, which I mean, I don't know too much about the Navy. You know, I don't think it was like a Navy SEAL or anything like that. I think was he like he was a mechanic or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, he's in his prime. He's 27 years old, and he's a
Yeah,
big dude, right? He can hold
yeah,
his
yeah.
own for sure,
And he's like
which is
over
cool.
200 pounds,
Hmm,
and jacked
hmm.
or something. It's
Yeah,
kind of nice to hear that, instead of these stories being like about wimpy guys.
yeah,
It was like, some jacked Navy guy coming
yeah,
down.
yeah. What I like is, again, it's like if our world was thrown into this scenario, and it does have those dark, brutal elements. I mean, if
For sure.
it's kind of like the Walking Dead or something like that. Like
Hmm.
people would people would do things you wouldn't necessarily expect or like or anything like that.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's all about survival, right?
definitely. I mean, I like the Walking Dead comparison, but I think it's more of like a Shaun of the Dead kind of like not maybe necessarily a piss take on that, but like just kind of like uh, in a comedic way, things are going bad, but at the same time, silly things are happening. And it's just
Yeah,
like, okay, well, this is really dark and like people are dying and this is going on, but it's also in a wacky way,
yeah, it's very
Yeah,
humorous tone at the same time.
exactly. Exactly. It's
Yeah,
like, it's very different contrast between it's like, oh, this dark stuff is really happening, but at the same time, it's kind of being silly, it's,
yeah,
um, really like that. And I really like, you know, a lot of times when they do like stats or leveling up, which is a big part in a lot of lit RPGs, uh,
mhm,
uh, the way they did it in this one, I really enjoyed, the way they didn't go to uh, stat based. They didn't joke too much. It's not too much like banter.
mhm.
It's just, they do a few jokes, Sometimes you're like, okay, it's going a little bit, but they don't go too long. It doesn't too long with that. It's not just piss taking and making jokes like some books do. I like
Yeah,
that it's, you know, a little bit to the point for
yeah.
some
There
for
isn't too
some.
much.
Yeah.
There isn't too
I
much of an emphasis on like the stat part,
yeah, I like that.
which is,
It's
yeah, it's refreshing, and I feel like this can appeal to a much wider audience because of that,
oh, for
right?
sure.
There's a big
Yeah.
focus on the plot and characters as well. The only thing that kind of got that I didn't really enjoy, but it was so minor. I mean, it's the thing is the info dumping. I mean, that's expected. This is book one, right? It wasn't too much. It didn't take away from my enjoyment at all, but there's a little bit to get through, and yeah, I can't
It's
even.
a lot of starting first books in a lot of series. I mean, they gotta do all the exposition, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got
Yeah.
your whole prologue kind of thing, but it's the whole like the start first book, you know. For a long series like these, you know, they at least they get it out of the way early, you know.
Hmm. But in terms of lit RPG, I think this is a staple. Like this is a must
Hmm.
read or must listen to, especially with Jeff Hayes as the narrator.
Definitely, it's one of the ones where it's like if you're instead of reading it as a book, it might be better to read it as an listen to it as an audiobook. You know, there's
Yeah.
some very few things I could say that's the case for, but you know, with uh, podium audio, or sorry, sound booth theaters, they they know what they're doing. You know, it's like you're kind of listening to a movie. They do a very good, you know, they do a very good job.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree 100%. Why don't we go to the overview? So, I mean, we touched on it a lot already, but this story, I guess, yeah, it is a post-apocalyptic kind of thing. I mean, on the title, on the cover of the book, it says this little snippet is the apocalypse will be televised,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
I mean,
yeah.
it's the synopsis had never really sold me, but I
Mm.
mean, I wish I had listened to it earlier, like a lot earlier. You know, it's definitely a staple. It's and the cover too. I mean, I don't want to cut. Yeah, I don't want to cut back, but it's like the cover didn't sell it. Didn't really sell me for a long time. Didn't look. It's not. You know, you don't want to judge this book by the cover, for sure.
See, I'm the opposite. I looked at that cover before I even got like read it or thought about reading it. I saw that cover and I'm like, this looks like it would be pretty hilarious
Yeah.
because you got this big like traditionally masculine looking dude and he's like in his boxers and he's like just running for his life with a cat like in
Oh
tow.
yeah.
You know what I mean? That
I,
was
I
yeah.
yeah, I guess, you know, I thought maybe it would be, you know, it'd be too silly or, you know, it'd be kind
Mm.
of childish, you know,
Okay,
when I
yeah.
first looked at it, kind of like, oh, this is kind of be, oh, it looks kind of childish or whatever. I didn't really expect, you know, as much adult themes as there was, you know.
Hmm.
I thought it'd be more, you know, because there are some books out there that you think, oh, this is going to be good, but then it's kind of got a sillier cover and you're like, okay, this is good. And then it's just like, oh, it's just silly, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's fair.
Mhm.
I did. Well, I did hear. Well, I did see that a couple other like booktubers, people that I know, were talking about it. So I'm like, okay, these are people that we have a lot of some things in common. So I might enjoy this one too. So yeah, the other thing, I don't know if this is well, probably not. Like I said, I haven't been through a lot of lit RPG, but the fact that this is we got dungeon crawlers, right? We're leveling up and at the same time it's like it's this apocalyptic thing where the whole galaxy or the universe, like people are tuning in to watch these people go through this survival and this leveling up and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty unique, I think.
Universal Survivor. I mean, I guess it's definitely unique. I mean, I can't really think. I mean, other than that one episode from Rick and Morty, of anything that's kind of like that, you know, where
Oh
it's
man.
like the whole universe watches. I think there was one episode of Rick and Morty where it was like a Dancing with the Stars thing, but it was like a singing uh, one where they blow up your planet if you didn't show them what you got or whatever and
Oh my
sing
god.
properly. So other than that, I haven't seen anything like this. It's really an interesting take, especially for lit RPG. You know, most
Mhm.
lit RPG is kind of more of like, oh, you're in a fantasy world, or oh, there was an apocalypse, but now and then you're surviving. But you're never really like there's like an overlord kind of like controlling everything. That's new to me.
Yeah, and I like the tone of this one because when I was looking for suggestions for starting lit RPG, and people were telling me that this is absolutely like they kept coming back to this one, Dungeon Crawler Carl. If you like, because I like, it's pretty well known by now that I like a lot of grimdark, a lot of dark fantasy. So that those dark elements combined with this kind of lit RPG theme, it was recommended very highly. And yeah, I agree. There are definitely some dark, brutal parts,
Mm-hmm.
but combined with a lot of humor. You know what I mean? It doesn't really dwell on the darkness. It's a lot of
No,
humor and just really real moments, I guess you could say.
for sure. He doesn't. He like he'll go into it a little bit, but he won't really dwell onto the dwell in the darkness at all. He doesn't like sit there crying, curling up into a little ball or anything like that. He still is like, I got to keep moving, got to keep going.
Yeah.
Very, I like that kind of that it doesn't like hold on. You know, you're like you don't have to
Hmm.
like deal with somebody else's story for too much. It's kind of sad to say, but it's like
Yeah.
sometimes I can hold a book up. You know,
Yeah.
uh, or some grimmer stories like you can really tell somebody's going through something that's you get those big feelings. Um,
Hmm.
not really part of this book. It's it really shows darkness, but doesn't go too much into you
Yeah.
know.
It's got the perfect blend for
Yeah,
sure
yeah. It
of
doesn't feel.
everything.
He doesn't like really hold. He feels bad for himself, but isn't like, you know, need a Xanax or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't we jump into? Well, I mean, this is a question mainly for you since you've got a lot more experience with lit RPG. Um, what are some similarities to for people that are
Like
diving into it
similar
and have some
books.
questions? Yeah, like similar kind of lit RPG or stuff like that, or big differences with others. You know.
Like other books from the This Quest is Broken series by J.P. Valentine. It's also
Mhm.
very similar kind of style to this series, but kind of like a different, uh, definitely a different, novel altogether. Very kind of like silly with the silly kind of quest notifications. That's got way more leveling and building up that way, but
Mhm.
very good, uh, kind of like lighthearted, silly story, but more in a classic way. That one's kind of interesting. It's basically about this girl who grows up in a village, and they basically everybody gets a quest when they turn a certain age, and sometimes the quests are super hard, like go kill a dragon, go slay a
Mhm.
dragon, and that's your life quest. Basically, these are your life quests. Once you're done that quest, that's it for life. And some of
Hmm.
them are easy, like knit the comfiest sweater. And when you
Yeah.
finally do that, you've finished your life's quest.
Hmm.
You don't really get a job. You just whatever the quest is, that's your goal for life.
Yeah.
And it's you get your stats from that. You get your character from that. Like you're either like a knitter or you're a warrior or whatever from that quest.
Hmm.
Um, and the main character gets a quest that's a legendary quest to get a loaf of bread from the next village over.
Hmm.
And it's just odd because it's a legendary quest and it should be very, very easy.
Yeah.
So and that's how that starts. And it is a very good one that's very similar to this, at least in certain ways, like in the style of telling and in the um, maybe not as dark, but
Mhm.
it very much like the quest notifications and general storytelling in a very similar way. Also, if you like the way that this audio is done on this book, you probably would also like the He Who Fights with Monsters series because that guy is also does by Travis Deverell, and Heath Miller does the audio for that, and Heath Miller is also a fantastic with the audio. Uh, different characters, different voice acting, fantastic. Another series in the lit RPG that is very good. I think they're on their 10th book now or 11th book. It's very good series.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
writing these down because I'm definitely gonna check them out.
There you go.
Yeah. So for me, the only the series that I can really relate this to is Everybody Loves Large Chess, which is the only other series I've listened to, which is also narrated by Jeff Hayes. And I think, yeah, it's phenomenal as well. They're both really good. I think I'm just really enjoying Jeff Hayes as a narrator, but there are a lot of big differences between those two series.
Mm,
Like that one, I mean, that one follows the progression of a mimic, right?
yeah,
A chess, like this, its
that is a
whole upbringing.
also a
Um,
very dark series, a very dark
mhm.
series. But
Yes, very dark, but
uh,
definitely a lot more vulgar and like more sexual content.
very much so. It's one you probably won't see a lot of recommendations for because I think people who do really like it, they're almost afraid to tell people about it because it's like there's some
Mm,
stuff in there you're like, all right,
like wow.
that's right. That's you know, but
Yeah.
if you can look past some of that, you can it's an amazingly well written story, and a really, really cool world, really interesting background. As long as you can take into mind that there is some, you know, very adult themes in
Very,
there,
yes,
very adult
very adult.
themes,
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Don't be. I would use headphones for that one. That's a headphones audio book. You mean this one? You could definitely don't need headphones for.
Hmm.
You definitely, have that one at a lower volume.
Yeah. So why don't we jump into spoilers now? The parts that stuck with you the most, your favorite parts, let's say.
Okay, favorite
Yeah.
parts.
Hmm.
Ooh, I guess. When Donut first starts to talk, like you get first kind of
Mm.
get introduced to that character, that
Yeah.
side character, and you're like, uh, this is going to be the side character. It's like you really see this, and you're like, all right, this is the comedic relief right here. This is
Hmm.
what's going to lighten everything up, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this cat's mean, and it's got they do a perfect, like if a cat could talk, this is probably what it would say.
If a cat could talk, yeah.
Oh yeah, just everything from the cheat the her when his girlfriend's cheating on him and all this stuff, and he just brings stuff up like gotta pay
Yeah.
the daddy tax, or
Oh
when it's like when that guy came over whenever you take the smelly bag away, you know
man. Yeah. Oh man, the humor in this is just so good with
oh so
Carl.
good,
All this stuff being mentioned to him, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "What the
yeah.
hell?" It's
I
like,
think one of
and
my
his punchline sums it up so perfectly. God damn it, donut!
oh yeah,
How
and
many
it's
times did he
like,
say that?
oh, so many times.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't realize, like, they're talking about in the beginning about it, like, oh, catchphrases, you got to have a
Yeah.
catchphrase that'd be good, and
Hmm.
I didn't think, I'm like, oh, what he's gonna have for his catchphrase, and until you're like, say your catchphrase, I'm like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
And it just shows, God damn it, donut. I'm like, oh yeah, he's been saying that a lot. He has been
I actually
saying that a
went
lot.
back. I went back several chapters, and
Yeah,
I listened to it again, and I'm like, "Oh, he says God damn it, donut a lot."
yeah. I'm like, it doesn't. They don't make like a God damn it, donut. They don't like
Yeah.
really showcase it, but it's like, oh, it happens a lot. It's like,
Yeah. For me, something so memorable was when that old man just gets up and starts pissing on the walls, when you know
oh
that a
my God.
rage elemental is going to show up, and then it does show up.
Oh,
Like,
for sure. It was one of those things you're like, they've been talking about this. There's been foreshadowing for don't piss in here, don't do
yeah.
whatever. It's like, and you're like, all right, well, something's going on. And they talk about the guy, and they say like, oh, nothing bad's happened to us for a while, and something's
Mhm.
gonna happen,
Yeah.
and you didn't expect it. And I mean, that's where some of the darkness comes in, for the series.
Hmm.
Like, uh, they don't shy away from like killing how it like side characters.
Hmm.
I forget the name of the lady who died. I don't know if you remember, one of the nurses,
Oh yeah, Yolanda, was it?
Yolanda. Yeah, I think that was the
Yeah.
one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That was sad.
it's like that's, I mean, and he goes into that Yolanda. That's it. You're right.
Hmm.
Um, but that's a interesting and monster there, and if there's more of that coming, that's kind of interesting. As at the
Yeah.
beginning, you've got lots of cool mobs, really cool characters, that he's fighting. It's, they're very interesting and creative, which is
Hmm.
nice. It's not just like goblin. I mean, there's goblins in the very
Yeah.
beginning, but they're like the kobolds are different. Like they even says
Mm.
like, oh, usually when I play D&D, they're like lizard creatures.
Yeah.
I mean, the the little chihuahuas. It's pretty riding the danger dingoes. It's
The
cool.
danger dingoes.
Yeah.
Was it? It was the kobolds, right? The
Yeah,
kobolds
that
were the
was
danger dingoes that
yeah.
love black metal,
That was it. That was it. There's
bro.
a kobolds that like
Yeah.
the black metal.
When that part came up, I'm like, I was so happy. I was
Oh
elated
yeah.
that there are metal references in this story.
Oh,
Like
for
he's
sure.
talking
They even
about
had
the
like they named a couple bands as well. It was
yeah, the fact that they love black metal and they
hmm
named Dimmu Borgir and Satyricon. Now
yeah.
I've heard a lot about Dimmu Borgir. I haven't heard any of their stuff, but I have heard a song by Satyricon, which is so good. I forgot. I can't recall it right now, but
I
yeah,
it's pretty fantastic. I feel like almost this series was kind of made for you. This book was made for you. I mean,
right.
the amount of times I'm like, this is gonna hit like it's been pretty hit
With the
good.
metal
It's
and the
like
Magic the Gathering
yeah,
reference.
you're a big Magic the Gathering guy. There's a
Yeah,
pretty big dig on Magic the Gathering, and I'm looking at
yeah.
this. I remember hearing it. I was smiling ear to
Me
ear.
too.
I was like, "Oh, he's gonna like this."
I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is
That's
I
good.
was like, "Oh, he didn't like Magic the Gathering. He knows somebody that plays Magic the Gathering, and he's giving a big big hit to that."
What were they saying? They're like, oh, bet you finally realized all those Magic the Gathering cards are just pieces of cardboard. You should have spent your money on something else.
Something useful. It's
I'm
like
like, I'm like, that hits a little too hard.
it's a deep cut.
Yeah,
Staring over your boxes and boxes of cards.
just questioning myself. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, so good, so good.
hmm from the human characters that he meets, I mean, most like other than the old people and the nurses, the bad characters are the uh, evil like characters. I guess I don't know what you call them. I guess antagonist. The
More antagonist.
antagonist for
Yeah,
the yeah uh, Frank Q and
and
Maggie.
Maggie. Yes.
Yeah, um, very dark. I mean,
Hmm.
we're not really going in any order here.
Definitely the darker side of humanity there.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
again, it's all about perspective, right? They're doing what they need to survive, and you don't really realize that until you realize they have a daughter, Yvette,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe there's two separate games going on here because I guess their guy said you have to kill everybody to survive. Maybe they have to. Maybe they don't get health potions. Maybe they can't heal. Maybe the
Is it
daughter.
reference to or Maggie choking out her daughter?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. See, the way I perceived it is, um, because she was injured, right? She
Yeah.
was really badly injured from what it seemed. And it seemed as though, in my mind, that Maggie was kind of putting her out of her misery so she didn't
Mm.
suffer any longer, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. I understand that, but
Yeah.
I mean, both Donut and Carl, they both were like at one each different points at 1 HP, right? Like they're
Hmm.
like in the red, dying,
Yeah.
you know, at different points in the book, and there's this like walk it off, they feel their
Yeah.
bones popping back together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
They
mean, as
heal
long as
slowly,
you're
I
not
guess.
like, I mean, if you miss a limb, you're missing a limb basically at that point. But like anything else, he seems to be able to heal it up. You know,
Hmm.
at least what it seems to be in the book. Kind of like they're like, even if you had cancer, that goes away. If you're in the
Yeah.
dungeon, it all gets healed away. So, I
There's
mean,
definitely a lot more to it that we probably don't know.
yeah, at
Know the
least for
intricacies.
their side, there's something she kept screaming about how you don't know what's
What
going
happened?
on or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So I'm
Hmm.
guessing it's different for them.
Yeah,
But
I want to find out what happened. and
Mm-hmm.
see what the context is there, why they had to off their own daughter. I mean, you saw Frank after in that interview, right? He was
Oh
just
yeah,
the dude's like almost a vegetable now. He can't
yeah.
even, you know.
It shows that dark side there. It's like very,
Yeah.
you know, he knows what he's doing was wrong. I feel like that he knew,
Hmm.
and I'm sure he feels like it was his fault too, causing
Yeah.
that. But and that really comes out very, very dark.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think about the overlords, the mud skippers or whatever? Um, what did I call them? Type that in the bottom there.
Um, I I don't know,
Unti-
man. I was more interested in like the corporations that are behind this whole thing.
Mm.
Does that have to do with that race, or is that
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
okay?
that section of the system basically owns that other corporation that runs
Mhm.
is running the game. Like the different systems run the game, and they have the corporation that runs the game in that system. So different
Mhm.
systems. One of them had like a battle royale. Some of them had the dungeon system. So
Yeah.
you kind of get a little bit of that in the show. What is that show called? They're like the recap. They do a
Yeah.
recap in the
Yeah.
show, and
Mhm.
they kind of did that in the first one. They showed like a little bit from the last episode, the last season. So it's lighthearted, but it's
Yeah.
like the theme is very dark. You
It
know.
is, and there's definitely a lot of overarching things that will come to the forefront. Like for example, the Borant Corporation,
That's
right?
it. That's it.
Those are the ones running the show right now,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because we know that they started this dungeon early. Like
Yes.
they ended the world early. I think like 2 years early or something
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
were supposed to, right?
And none of the people were prepared. None of the
Yeah.
quest givers or anything were prepared. So they're just like,
But
all
there's
right.
definitely more to that because wasn't it like the other corporation, the Voltai, was it called? The
I, uh,
Voltai?
yeah, I think it
They
was.
they were supposed to do this one, but the Borant
Well, no,
Corporation.
they were going to actually they were going to do a hostile takeover of the other system. Basically, they're like they
Mm,
had debt, and
right.
like, I don't know if it was the Born Corporation or just the whatever is the overlord of that system there. Because remember they were talking about like having they had like some sort of like Nazi party system, right? Like if you're part of the
Mm,
party, they have a little badge, and you know, uh, there's a whole. I'm sure there's going to be a whole thing on this in some later parts of the book, later parts of the series. So they're going to do a deep dive into that.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. There's definitely a
foreign
bigger,
corporation. Yeah,
yeah, much bigger overarching conflict with like Borant and Voltai. I think
yeah,
that's what they're called, Voltai.
yeah. I just know that the I
Agatha.
was running Agatha. That's it.
Yeah,
Because Agatha had
yes.
some stuff, right? I
Yeah,
think
at
from
the
that
end there, yeah.
corporation. Yeah, yeah,
At the end there, you realize some of the looks she's giving and like the context you
she,
get there. It's like, is she? I think here's a prediction.
there we go. Let's go some theories now. I like
I'm
this.
predicting. I think my theory is that Agatha is controlled by a Voltai, um, one of the races or whatever from the
Mm,
Voltai, because it was mentioned that they were like they're like parasites. They latch onto a host, right?
that's right. They're like a single organism, but like multiple minds, right? Like it's like one of
Yeah.
those systems. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
forgot
think
about
Agatha's
that.
part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I mean, I kind of makes sense.
Maybe I think she's like the glitch or the thing that the Voltai planted in the game to for
Hmm.
some purpose. I don't know. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is.
There's a few things that I'm like, because I feel that like I'm not sure what side she's on though. I mean, like, why did she save all those old people, right? Like, she let that
Mm,
fire to make everybody go outside. You know, what was the reason behind that? Like, is she whose side is she on? I know she's crazy. It's kind of giving
yeah.
the looks like, hey, if you know, shut your fucking mouth.
Yeah.
Or is it like, or is it because of that, or is it does she know that he knows? You know, and why does
Hmm.
the system? kind of like giving him the information, basically. Like, why is because the system is different than that runs the game is different than the Borant company, right?
Hmm. Is that? I don't recall. Is that the
So
case?
yeah, so the system is what governs uh the destruction of planets because basically there's like laws like the universal laws for just getting those planets material, right? And
Mm-hmm,
running the
mm-hmm.
game show. So it's like basically a Geneva Convention, but it's like
Mm.
done by AI. And you know, that's why they keep getting in trouble by like having monsters that are too high level or issues with the washroom.
Right, right.
And they got in trouble because the second level was supposed to be like 10 days and they shoved it down to 6 days, right? And as
Mm.
the system was like giving them like warnings, like, hey, you can't do this. It's too much. You know, you're skirting, the Geneva Convention a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the system is trying to like push him towards Agatha and that other, why it's showing him that information. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
That is
Perfect.
yeah. It's interesting the adjustments they make throughout the game or the dungeon crawling.
Yeah. So what do you
Um
think about do you have any theories with the Brazilian girl with the dogs?
I don't know. I'm assuming she's definitely gonna make it into the higher levels and be
And that's like way like end game kind of in the story, or do you think that's gonna come up sooner?
well, maybe it might. I think it might come up sooner, but I'm assuming she'll be like additional character that we maybe follow along with her dogs. I'm not too sure,
No,
but I
yeah,
think
you
she
don't
has a
know.
much
I
bigger.
mean, it's hard to tell if somebody's gonna be like
Mm,
a bad guy or a good guy in this.
mm-hmm.
It's
That
like,
yes, yeah.
yeah. I guess we could kind of break down some of the game shows that he was on because that's a
Mm,
very interesting take in this
yes,
thing. It's not just, you know, grinding and like you're fighting these boss battle and this boss battle and these are the new enemies that he's involved with or like people in the dungeon. It actually sucks. They actually suck him out of the dungeon and
mm,
donut to go on these talk shows,
yeah.
which I think is really interesting.
It is
It
absolutely.
kind of gives you a break and gives you more of a show of what the world's really like.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing Donut kind of take the lead there. I mean, she obviously
Yeah,
her
I
image is important to her, right?
for sure. I mean, lots of funny piss takes on that as well. Like I don't know if you know what you're doing. You just get a finger in your bum or whatever. And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And Dungeon Crawler Carl is like the the
Yeah,
side piece to her, you know?
yeah.
That's
It's
so
just
funny.
like she gets to run the show. It's like you're my steed or whatever, or what is it? You're
Yeah.
my
Bodyguard.
bodyguard. Yeah. The second show he goes on to gets pretty dark, where he
Yes.
uh where it talks to that orc from a different system,
Hmm.
and he's
He's like
just
a prince.
you kind of get this YouTuber vibe. You totally get it, and you're like, oh, this is you know somebody like some like Jake Paul follower or something like that. Kind of like you're like,
Yeah, he's a
okay,
spoiled
something.
brat.
All right, yeah, he's
He's
in
just
the Japanese
yeah.
suicide force for sure.
Well, he's
Uh,
like some spoiled little noble orc, right? And
yeah.
who's kind of been given this as a gift, and he's an ass. Like, let's
Oh
face it.
yeah,
I'm so glad that Carl kind of puts him in his place,
for
and
sure.
and then
Uh,
that video.
yeah, and it's just
uh,
like, yeah, there's just smut of him now.
yeah,
It's like I think that's really that funny at the end.
yeah. Oh man,
Um,
we're
and
absolutely gonna see him in level 9.
yeah,
'Cause they said he's a part of level 9, I think,
yeah, I
and
think it's the odd levels because it's like I think the third level they're not really a part of it, but that's what it's like these other
because
war thing. I think it's seven
the
and nine.
tiara that Princess Donut wears,
Yeah,
it was cursed or something. Right now,
yeah,
she has to defeat like the some
blood.
people in level 9.
I think what the orc said is that they're Nagas. At
And
least
from
it's
what I understood, the orcs are there as well, like that
yeah.
game show host.
So it's some sort of like mass war, like I'm sure kind of like a raid in between different ones. I'm not sure if it's going to be like on a battlefield or is it like a space thing because it's in the it's kind of
Mm.
that kind of uh, genre. Is it going to
Yeah,
be like in the dungeon? Is it going to be what is it? What are these levels going to be? Because I know it is a dungeon that's in the ground. I think because it's reusing parts of the earth,
yeah, the
but I
materials
don't
and stuff.
know
Yeah,
if those levels are going to be in there. If the uh, other people in the universe are coming for that.
hmm.
I think it'd be cool if it wasn't. If it was it's in some sort of like space thing. But if it's going to be in the dungeon, that's cool too. I think that's going to be. I'd be interesting to see how they do that.
Can we just talk for a minute?
Mm.
I think one of the funniest parts of the series is this AI that he tells the achievements and the rewards
Yeah.
every time. Achievements and rewards. He is just the most hilarious troll that you have ever heard.
Oh,
Right?
so funny, so
So funny.
funny, and it's like from when he kills the goblin babies, and it's just like
Yeah.
just it's like, oh, it's okay. Don't worry, they all go to a safe zone, and until they grow up, and you don't have to worry. It's like they're fine, and the reward is those 10 seconds where you didn't feel like a total monster.
Yeah.
That's your reward because they're all dead. You
Or
killed
just the
them. You're a
odd
monster.
times. Yeah. Just like the odd
Oh,
times where it's like, congratulations, you did this, which is not very, very
just an achievement
whatever.
and that doesn't
Very
give you
cheap
anything
of you.
for it. Just
Very cheap of you. And then he's like, reward? Bitches don't get rewards. Like,
yeah.
you don't get reward for being a bitch. Like just the biggest
Oh
trolling
yeah.
moments.
Like we'll give you a pop up with a big middle finger on it.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
that. Yeah. And I mean the voice changing too. It's like different things, like where it's got like kind of like a honk tonk hick voice for some things,
mhm.
or you know the foot stuff.
I mean,
You
this
know,
I was gonna say this AI has a foot fetish.
oh, and
Oh,
it's I that voice. I mean, okay, get the hair go in the back of my neck, stick straight up. It's like oh, I don't like that.
when I first heard that, I'm like, oh my god, this is
Eh,
wow.
Not nice. Not at
Oh my goodness,
all.
like he's sounds like he's really getting off to this.
Yeah,
But
it's not the voice you want to hear beside you in the movie theater.
yeah. And the fact
Yeah.
that Carl has to play along with this now for the views and all that
Just
stuff.
just for like the help from the dungeon itself, right? Because I think
Yeah,
that's the system. The dungeon and the system is like that's what it digs the foot stuff,
that's what the people
and
want.
yeah, it's what the people want. So
And
gotta
one of
pay
his
the
boxes, one of his achievements was a like a pedicure set. What was that?
you got a pedicure set that
A
makes his feet
pedicure set.
invincible. Yeah,
There, take care of your feet.
yeah. Got the
Oh
toe
man.
ring. That's his first
Yeah,
one,
the
right?
toe ring.
Yeah. He's walking around with a toe ring and
Oh man.
boxers. Speaking of gear, I mean,
Mm,
I like how they do his gear as well. It feels very much like, apocalyptic, like grab whatever you can get. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Very Borderlands and like, Mad Max. Sorry.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen Mad Max? Okay.
No.
Because it's very much like they put whatever on them and they're repurposing whatever they have. It seems
Mm,
very much like that in this where it's like he's got a coat that he's got in his underwear, but he gets like knee pads. He's got
yeah.
like you pick up whatever he can get, whatever better gear he can get, but it's like it's no like it's not getting a suit of armor. He's not getting
Yeah.
military gear. He's not getting like full sets of anything. It's just like this weird thing, this tacky thing. You know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's guess gets a weird hat or some point, you know.
Mm. Yeah. I mean,
It's
I'm pretty sure he's going to stay in his boxers throughout the series.
oh yeah.
I
A
mean,
lot of lit RPGs, they'll like, and then they get gear, they'll get like, this class set of gear, and it'll try to make the guy look really badass.
mhm.
And they'll describe it in a, but I mean, this is definitely not doing that. Even the things, it's like, it makes you look like a, corner store Batman,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I really dig that kind of like, very gives you that, he's don't get a lot of choices. Grab what you can get. Anything that'll give you
Mhm.
that 1% edge not to be able to wake up tomorrow. Take it.
Yeah. So there is something else to
Mm,
discuss. There is
mm,
a big discussion to be had on the fact that he meets up with this group and they're willing to look after a group of elderly people
mm.
in a place like this. I mean, what do you make of that? Because me, like, oh my gosh, a group of elderly people in a place like this,
And not a
to
small
me, you're
amount
like
either.
you're asking to be killed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm sure. Uh, in the beginning, you have all these thoughts of just daily life, right? You're like, and
Mhm.
these people, they took. I mean, to the guys there, they're just maintenance guys, right? And they don't
Mhm.
know what's going on. Like it's not like they're trained for any of this, They
Yeah.
don't even know how to really take care of old people either, I mean, they do some work for the home, but like they're just, mainly, like I think they're fixing heating or something like that when they're there, or like the
Mhm.
washing machine. I don't know, but they're not like caretakers,
Yeah.
and they just had that two nurses there, and that was it. Um, they had more people that were helping, right? It wasn't
Mhm.
just the old people, but they had like police and firefighters, but they all kind of got whacked in one way or another
Mhm. Mhm.
before Carl even gets there. Carl and Doyle don't even get there. They're all dead, and it's like they're
Yeah.
like the last of the last, you know.
Yeah.
And you've got people that are. That lady was like, they're saying that she was 99 years old. Could you
Mhm.
imagine? Like, and you're just like, I guess we're gonna drag this 99-year-old lady.
Yeah, right?
I
There's
mean,
like, man, you gotta look after all these seniors, and it makes for very interesting storytelling. Like,
yeah. I
you're
I
always
mean,
on edge, you know what I mean?
I don't know if I could do the same. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, Mima,
Yeah.
love you, but you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
100 years. Some of these people,
I can't
it's to their detriment sometimes.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I can't see them lasting very long, but,
Well,
if they find a way.
yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing with them getting to the third level, right? Because then you
Mhm.
get that class,
That's
and
right.
then the character. You could change your race or whatever, and maybe they
Yeah.
find some way to like. Maybe they have an army now.
Yeah, maybe they find
They're
someone
not
to
just
work it
senior
out.
citizens anymore. They're like, turn them
Yeah.
into geriatric elves. Who
Oh, yeah,
knows?
maybe they turn into another race that can handle, like, very, very old age, like,
Yeah.
live
Or
1,000 years old or something.
give them some sort of boost to not be useless anymore. You never
Yeah,
know. Maybe that 99-year-old will become a
yeah.
super babe, and that'll be his love interest. You never know. Yeah,
Yeah,
turn it
and the way
around.
we the way we ended things, they're just going into level 3, right?
Yep.
So
So
maybe they will amass a pretty decent force,
exactly.
right?
So that
That's
that could be what's coming up next. They said that they're not going to change race or all. Do you think they have any idea of what their classes are going to be?
I think with the old people, it'll be an array of stuff, right? They're
Oh
just gonna
yeah.
be like, "Oh, well, I always wanted to be this," or "I always thought these are cool," or whatever,
Yeah, it's
right?
kind of more of an
No.
array. They got like,
Yeah,
what do they have, like 20, 30 people or something like that?
something like that, yeah.
Decent number of elderly,
I think
but
everybody has a good chance of changing their race and class and stuff, except maybe Carl and Donut, because
That's
we know
that's
that
that's the big one.
yeah,
Yeah.
because we know that Donut, for the views and stuff, she has to. It would be in her interest to stay the same, right? Stay
Yeah.
as a cat. So I don't think she will change.
I think they
Carl,
both yeah.
I don't think Carl will change.
No, I think they both kind of voice that they don't really want to change their race and they're
Yeah.
gonna stick it out. Like Carl doesn't want to not be a human anymore. You think he's gonna
Mm.
want to stay human? I'm sure it's gonna stay that way. I
Hmm.
mean, but I kind of wonder what Carl and Donut's classes are gonna be though. That's gonna be the big one for me. Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess you kind of have some sort of idea because what they kind of focus in. Carl's kind of more of a hand to hand combat. He's probably going to be something like a monks or something like that, right? Unless there's
Yeah.
something new, because there's new classes for each planet, right? So they has
Hmm.
like planet specific classes, and people like to watch that. So maybe there'll be something more interesting, with a more
Yeah.
interesting name than monk. Who
Yeah.
knows? But I wonder for a donut because I know she's more magically oriented,
Yeah.
but is she going to be like a beast tamer? Because we didn't really talk about that yet,
Mm.
but she's a dinosaur tamer. You know,
Yeah. They have that dinosaur now. Yeah.
so I was just looking here. I got some notes, and I should have put this up earlier. But one of my favorite other lines that you were talking about the quest system. One of the things was the mana toast was hilarious when they had to go into one of the break rooms, and they usually have some sort of food there if they don't have a guy
Hmm.
cooking you stuff. And one of them was like this mana toaster. It'll give you free toast. It gives you mana.
Yeah.
And he looks at it, reads the information on it, and it's like mana toast. It's toast. Gives you mana. Fuck you. And it's just like, all right, why?
Of course.
Why? I mean, it was
Of
just
course.
perfect.
The troll AI has to add a little "fuck you" at the end there.
Oh yeah, and it
What else
was
do you want?
just perfect. Like you see, and when they do the audio too, it's great. You're not expecting it when you might be when you're reading it, and it's just kind of
Yes,
like,
that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
you're like that little space. You're like, all right, why is it? Fuck you, the perfect little break.
Yeah. Yeah. Another reason to dive into the audio. Okay, so the first boss battle
Mm.
is the neighborhood boss, that like huge Spanish lady.
Oh yeah,
Now that was disturbing, to say the
that
least.
was very disturbing.
But the fact that she only spoke Spanish, and
Hmm.
from what she was saying, I mean, I don't speak Spanish, but it sounded like she was either begging for her life or like begging to be put out of her misery, because I kept hearing "por favor" a bunch of times.
Hmm.
Very disturbing.
Very disturbing. It was very dark. You could tell he was not prepared for that. You know,
Yeah.
all those boss battles with the recycled humans is very, very dark. That first one,
Yes.
choking it out, you first kind of get that dynamic, like you kind of see how like Donut's not prepared for this at all, doesn't want to get involved, shuts down, and then Carl is like, I gotta take things into, uh, you know, takes charge and like has to do all the work, and I could see how that would, you know,
Yeah.
in a situation like that, very
Mm.
frustrated, very
Yeah.
frustrated, right? Like
Yeah.
I could see how he's like, I will do something, help me, I don't want to die here
Yeah.
either.
See, that battle was disturbing, but it was nicely done. It was
Mm,
done well.
yeah.
The other one, the one with the juice head,
Oh,
right?
they
That
just yeah,
that roided out guy.
yeah,
That one had me kind of rolling my eyes a little bit. I'm like, oh my god, this is
yeah.
like the typical.
I thought it was very funny.
It was kind of funny. I mean, he just keeps saying, "Bro, give me a spot, bro."
Oh
Like,
yeah.
oh my
No,
god.
that was very funny. It's a very, very different boss battles. Where one is
Hmm.
like you're like, the horror. Oh my god. I can't believe this. They're like doing this, and then the other one is just like, oh my god. You
It's
laugh.
like,
You know,
it's like, geez,
this is
yeah,
silly.
Yeah,
Even the
yeah,
descriptions are different, from like this, the
yeah,
first one was like this hoarder, died alone, all this, terrible stuff, regretting their lives. And this other one was like, this guy's a juicer, so mad because he can't get any more gains. It's like this pimple
yeah,
fat full back or whatever.
yeah.
Different, totally different descriptions, different styles. I'm sure you'll see a lot of that back and forth. It's interesting because it's not like the turn-based or anything like that. The boss battles are all just kind of like,
Hmm.
there's a trick. Can you
Yeah,
spot the trick before they spot the trick? Or how are they going to do? They're trying to be very creative in how the boss battle goes. It's not like, hit the spot a few times. It's more of a like, you know, how are they going to use the environment to win the boss battle?
that's right.
You know,
Hmm.
it's not really use these spells in a row and you know a lot of like fights in a lot of lit RPG. They'll kind of just kind of like do this fighting, and it's good in its own way. Where it's like it feels more like you're playing D&D or you're playing like a video game, and they're dodging and this and that's going on, and they're actually fighting using the abilities that they have. It's more of a sure they use their abilities that they have, but they also kind of more or less use the environment. Or he'll be like, I'll just chuck a big bomb in there instead,
Yeah.
or that kind of thing. I really like that.
The most memorable fight for me was with the rage elemental because I was wondering what the heck they were going to do about that.
That was
Right.
really cool. I do like that kind of element where they kind of like, how are we going to problem solving, right? Like all this problem
Hmm.
solving stuff. I really dig that in
Yeah,
this
and
book.
you knew it was going to be like a loophole or something because there's no way they're defeating a level 95
Yeah.
rage elemental, you know. So that was interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool. I mean, it would be nice if they had gotten like, super awesome gear because they killed this, you know, over leveled monster and
Yeah.
actually got ahead because of this. But
Yeah.
of course, then I
Of
want to make
course.
it easy for you. It's
Of
not one of
course.
those ones where it's like,
Yeah.
they get like a freebie because they did something silly in the beginning. It's like, no, 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 you
Yeah.
still got to work for it every single level.
I was kind of expecting that to happen, them to get like a huge boost, but when we realize that, you know, they it's not going to happen, I'm like, okay, yep, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
you don't want the progression to go out of whack.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
there's no where's the progression gonna happen, right? Like if he's
Hmm.
all of a sudden badass now, this
Yeah.
doesn't really make sense.
It's not going to make for an interesting story later on, right?
Yeah.
The last thing that I have here to touch on is the very end of the book. I think it's is it the epilogue or the last chapter? I think it's the last chapter is when we learn that um, they're going to go into level 3 and they're going to have to choose class and race selection. But we learn that there's a class for high charisma, which is what Donut has, that what is it, would be
Oh,
very good for her to have, like a class that's built for
yeah.
her because of her high charisma. But we're also told that it's going to make somebody very angry.
Hmm.
So
Well,
yeah, I don't know who that could be.
my thought on that is, and she's very hesitant to say it as well. She's really hesitant to give that option, and I kind of think
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
probably going to be Mordecai's probably the person that she's talking about.
Mm.
I think that it's going to be, you know, probably what his brother's class was,
Oh.
or something like that. I can only imagine. I mean, other than that, it could be the something that would piss off maybe the aberrant corporation. I
Hmm.
don't think that she would tell him to do anything like that. It's probably not what you want to do.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, the only other persons I could think that she would know that would piss off might
Mm.
be the orcs, but I don't think that she would care.
Yeah. It wouldn't
She'd be
matter.
like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it'll piss off the orcs," but the only one I think is probably Mordecai. You know, It seems
Hmm.
like that's the one. She's struggling. They obviously had some history. Yeah, I don't know. The character design for that character is very
Yeah.
very interesting. You
Uh-huh.
know, and
Uh-huh.
that just shows that gear that they get in this dungeon. It's not like you know suit of armor. It's gonna be weird stuff. Kind of
Yeah.
wonder what's gonna happen next for their gear.
Yeah. Well, they've amassed quite a following already.
Hmm.
They've gotten pretty big, Donut and Carl. So I'm
Yeah,
assuming they're going to start getting stuff from their patrons,
yeah.
just
More
random
toe
stuff.
rings. Well, I probably should ask you. What do you think? Do you what is going to be who he'd piss off by taking that class? Do you have any
See,
other idea?
I read that, I listened to that part twice, and I had no idea. I
No
still have
idea.
no idea. But
Really?
you mentioned Mordecai. That kind of makes sense to me as well. So
I mean, he's the only one that we really have talked to that like does anything about the classes.
yeah.
Um, Other than maybe the lady that the mud. What do they call them? We gotta figure out the name of these people. But
Oh
the
yeah.
Barrett
Oh
Corporation,
yes.
they're your
They're
media
kind of,
person.
yeah, they're PR person.
The PR person might be, but other than that, like none of the Earthlings have any knowledge of classes.
But safe to say, I think Donut will probably end up choosing that, won't she? Do you
I
think
would
so?
imagine that would probably be the case.
Yeah.
Probably going to take that class.
Hmm.
Whether, I mean, she wouldn't take it unless it's something that she would want. I don't see that she's not going to take it on somebody else's recommendation or
Hmm.
um, not take it because somebody says she probably shouldn't. If it's something that she likes, then she'll take it. I think that's
Yeah.
like their
Yeah.
personality. She's like, hey, read the books, figure out what the spell book is before you read it. Uh, Never done it once. Never done it
Yeah.
once. Just immediately, ah, perfect.
Yeah.
More torches.
Where do you see the story going? What other thoughts or predictions might you have in any area?
um, well, I mean, if I go from just lit RPG, a lot of the lit RPG stuff, they kind of follow certain pathways. They'll do most of the time they'll have like a instances. There'll probably be something like maybe they'll do like a treasure hunt or something like that, where they might take everybody in the game and they'll shove them all in one area for in a
Mm,
smaller area for something. It's probably what this third floor is. 'Cause there's some
mm,
sort of like war thing, kind of shove them all in the same kind of general zone, and there might be loot there that they can get, or
mhm,
guilds they can join or something like that. Some sort of reward system that kind of like mixes things up, so it's the same thing over and over again. Because I don't think we'll have like 5, 6, 7 books to this dungeon, just dungeon.
yeah,
They're gonna mix it up a little bit with different
spice
kind
it
of
up. Yeah.
instances, something something to change it up, so it's
Hmm.
not just the same thing over and over again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
um what that will be, not 100% sure. you know
Hmm.
Whether there be guilds or clans, or if more people are going to join him and Donut, or not.
Yeah. I don't think they're good. Do you think they'll make it to level 18, the final level? I don't think it's going to happen.
Ooh,
I don't think so. I think something
I
will happen before then, or they'll be taken out of the game. I don't know.
mm,
Those are my thoughts.
I don't think they'll take any like pleas or whatever where they do like I don't think they'll become uh, a guardian of it, or uh, I don't think they'll become a guild master or anything like that. I don't think they'll ever take anything like that.
Mhm.
His thing, his mantra, they won't break me. They won't break me.
That's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
I think I think it's either that he's going to go all the way to the end,
Hmm.
or he's going to basically get out of this game before then and like take down the corporation. Maybe I'm not 100% sure, but I wouldn't surprise me if he does make it all the way to floor 18. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of,
Mm.
unless it gets kind of boring, I feel like that might be the way it goes.
Mm.
I can't imagine them talking about all these floors and not making it all the way there. In the one book, he went through 3 floors already. You know,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
already 5 books out. I can't imagine. He'll slow the pace down at all. You know.
that's fair. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm assuming he's gonna like they're gonna get out before level 18 and somehow have to deal with this corporation
Mm.
conflict directly. Something like that, maybe, or maybe try to like
Maybe he'll make some more enemies.
yeah.
He's
Oh
already
yeah.
he's already stacking his list up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
He's got the orcs or whatever. I don't know if he'll take those guys down before the Barrett Corporation or not.
Yeah. And we haven't even touched on this, but we spoke earlier and you mentioned this. He might even run into Beatrice, right? His ex.
Yes. Oh
Yes.
wow, we barely talked about that.
Yeah.
I mean, they keep bringing her up, and
Hmm.
as well as oh god, Ferdinand.
Ferdinand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keeps referencing Ferdinand,
Yeah.
the the mystery acquaintance of Donut. So
I think it's a cat. Do you think
I,
it's? I think
I'm
it's got
sure
to
it's
be
a
a cat.
cat. I don't know. We don't know if it's a stray cat. I think that there's a pretty. I think there's a pretty high chance. I mean, they've talked about her a lot. It's going to be a big thing. They're going to go through uh, the whole, bees being her main owner, you know,
Yeah. Hmm.
and Carl like basically trying to be loving this cat, even though it's not his cat, and
Yeah.
cat's kind of a dick. Still kind of liking this cat, and like he was gonna like try to steal the cat basically from
Yeah.
his ex-girlfriend. And but you know does Donut choose to go to B or stay with Carl?
Yeah.
There's probably going to be a whole thing with that later on.
Maybe
I
that'll
don't know.
happen, and then that something's gonna happen because that he mentioned that Beatrice is planning on giving her up.
Yeah, comes
Trading in
very
for a
later,
younger
like
cat.
they're going to trade her. You're going to get traded in for a newer model. you
Oh, there's
know
gonna be some drama for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
I
Yeah.
don't know about Ferdinand, another cat. I don't know how you know that's
Mm.
going to come around, if there's ever going to be anything about to do with that. But it might come into play that why Donut jumped out the window in the first place, the very beginning of the book. Like,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, that window's been opened a number of times, and he opened it to have a smoke, and the cat jumped out into the tree. Whole reason he was outside in his boxers in the first place. Went to the road, was like, nah, not about this life.
Hmm.
And then, try to go back in. But, whole
We'll
reason
see.
why they're outside was it to go see Ferdinand. Maybe there's a love story there, cat love story.
Ah, that's
Maybe
right.
that'll come into play soon.
Hmm.
Who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
it'll be a mob or a boss.
Mm. I didn't even think of that. That would
Yeah,
be wild.
that could come into play with B as well.
Yeah.
Maybe B gets turned into one of the bosses, mixed
Oh my
in.
gosh. Oh,
Maybe she
wow.
becomes a crack heron.
That's a
Very
good theory.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas yourself? Do you think it's gonna? Do you think she's gonna come into play at all?
I can absolutely see her coming into play for
Yeah.
sure. For
Hmm.
sure. Um,
Do you think
maybe
it's gonna
even
be?
her and her ex or that guy that she was on vacation with, right? Who knows?
Mm,
I could see B coming into it and then them having this whole drama, that being a huge part of the one of the storylines. So
oh yeah, maybe a whole arc, even maybe one of the books.
mhm. But I'm really
Just
looking forward to the next book and seeing like what classes they choose and if they, the races, if any of them race swap.
oh
So
yeah,
I'm stoked to get to book two. We're
for sure.
yeah.
I guess
Um,
another characters that might come in later. What do you think about the? I'm guessing they're Koreans, the Korean people from the Orcs game show that he helps out.
oh yes.
Because I mean, as that might come in way later in the game. Something to think about.
Hmm.
That they might come back in because he's probably very thankful of helping him out early in the game, because you know they say that as you go deeper in the dungeon, the floors get smaller and smaller.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's less area
So you know
in
they're
the
going to run
dungeon.
into
So they could
people.
run in later, you know?
Yeah.
Might be something that pops up, you know. Maybe they'll be thankful. Maybe that's, you know, going to be part of his team. Maybe they joins their faction later. Who knows?
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to the continued references to things like metal
Yeah,
and Magic the Gathering,
yeah.
and
D&D.
any other things. Yeah, D&D. I think Matt Dinniman has done an awesome job here, and man,
Fantastic book.
I hope
Fantastic
all the
series.
other books deliver are as good, if not more good. Better.
Hmm. Better. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're going to be fantastic. I'm definitely excited to read the next one. So,
yeah, absolutely. So why don't we wrap things up here? Um, yeah, we've covered a lot. I mean, we'll get into the next book soon, and then we'll continue with this chat with book
hmm.
two whenever we're done that. But yeah, that's it for this. Thank you everybody for tuning in to first episode of Leveling Up, and other than that, we will see you all next time. Thanks, Nick, for joining me for this.
Anytime. Anytime.